Today we will be discussing the overlooked effects of cell phone bans. We will be answering the question, how does banning cell phones at school affect high school students socially? According to Education Week analysis, over 30 schools and school districts have implemented cell phone bans in 2019. With so many schools adopting these cell phone restrictions, it is important now more than ever to analyze and realize the effects that these cell phone bans have on students. Um, is it the right slide? All around the U.S., high schools have been banned. All around the U.S., high schools have banned cell phones without truly understanding how much of a negative impact it has had on the social health of high schoolers. Banning cell phones at school negatively affects high school students socially by causing social deprivation and nomophobia. Slides all got messed up. How banning cell phones at school leads to social deprivation among students. High school students regularly rely on their cell phones as ways to communicate with others through mediums such as social media or text messages. This means that taking away cell phones from high schoolers also means taking away one of their most common forms of communication. According to Pew Research Center, 72% of teenagers text regularly, and 1 in 3 sends more than 100 texts per day. Texting and communication through social media applications has become a new social routine in many high school students, and banning cell phones at school would mean to essentially ban the students' main form of communication. This restrains students from being able to interact socially with each other, causing social deprivation. Banning cell phones makes it more difficult for students to do anything from letting a friend know about plans for later during the day to staying informed about important news around the school. So schools banning cell phones deprives high school students of both social interaction and helpful information. How banning cell phones leaves high schoolers subject to developing nomophobia. According to the US National Library of Medicine, nomophobia is used to describe the feeling of panic or stress some people experience when they are unable to access their mobile phone. By now, it should be very clear how cell phones are an important part of many high schoolers' lives, and these students grow as a strong attachment to their devices. Forcefully taking away these cell phones for students causes them to develop anxiety. According to PubMed, smartphone, smartphone separation anxiety will become bigger and bigger issue for people in the future as technology becomes even more personalized and we grow ever more reliant upon it. Students who feel anxious about their phones may be more distracted and uncomfortable in school. So why do teachers and school administrators support banning cell phones? The most common argument by teachers and administrators is that cell phones cause a large distraction to students in school. Rather than focusing on their lessons and schoolwork, students engage with their cell phones during class, harming their academic performance. The motive for banning cell phones has generally been to mitigate the distractions that they cause, but teachers aren't taking into account the reasons why cell phones are distracting. Students haven't been taught proper responsibility towards their devices, using them without self-control and discipline. According to a student counselor from Hey Teach, students need to learn how to effectively manage their phones in classroom on their own. Learning to effectively manage and handle them is a valuable skill for students to learn. Cell phones are very useful tools in the classroom, so if students are just taught to handle them responsibly, the distractions would be reduced and cell phones could be integrated into lessons without issues. To conclude, schools definitely have justification for the idea of banning cell phones, which is that cell phones cause a distraction at school, but banning cell phones affects students more negatively overall. Banning cell phones causes nomophobia and social deprivation in students, two major issues in their social health.
All right, I have a couple questions for you. First question is, was there evidence that you gathered that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it?
Well, there were certain cases of evidence that was too general. It wasn't that specific. Like I remember I had a source over here. It was talking about how teenagers would use their phones a lot, but off campus, not on school, which is not related to the banning on school. And I had about 20 sources that I chose from. only about like 6 of them were able to relate to my topic of banning phones at school.
Um, what? All right. So listen to this question. You're actually the first person I've asked this question of, but I think it applies to what your topic is. What's a real world implication of what you have found out? Like, how could this information generally be used in the real world?
Well, first of all, I believe that if teachers and school administrators were more educated about the effects that banning cell phones at school had on the social health of high schoolers, they would take it more to ease and maybe find a new solution, like I suggested, to teach the students how to use their cell phones responsibly instead of banning them, because then the students would um, use their cell phones with more discipline and self-control, so they wouldn't be distracted by them in class. And cell phones do provide like a useful tool in classrooms. Like some teachers use Kahoot, for example,
Right.
which could be integrated really well if the students were just taught how to use their cell phones correctly.
Okay.